Pauls. Thompson. Festerson. Gurnett. Jerem. Mr. President.
Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation by Councilmember Rich Pauls.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good afternoon, and you know this is the day of, or the week of celebration, and I know a lot of you are out busy buying gifts for people, and I'm also ready to receive, it just in case you guys haven't bought mine yet. But I've had the opportunity, which many of us have, to help some families out. And so, in a couple of the organizations I belong to, so what they do, they give you their names or they give you the list. And I don't like to shop, to be honest with you. But I'm going to demonstrate today what one person wanted for Christmas. She wanted deodorant. She wanted toothpaste. Now this was for Christmas. And she wanted toilet paper. So I think sometimes we get so busy and so into ourselves that we don't realize there are people out there. Now this family was not homeless. They live in a house. But this was this one person's basic need, and this was not from an adult. So when you want to take your gifts back and exchange them for something else, I think we ought to keep in mind that we do have a lot of people out there who do need our help. And I know by watching on TV, lots of people are donating things to help those people in need. So that's just my message today. When you buy me something, my size is 42. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paul.
City Clerk certifies publication of the day record. The official newspaper on December 18th, pre-council and regular city council meeting December 22nd, 2015. A current copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of the legislative chambers.
This Omaha City Council meeting is conducted in public and by law may only address the topics listed on the published agenda. The council will hear testimony but will not engage in debate of issues with the public at this meeting. During testimony, it is not appropriate to applaud or convey disapproval. These actions detract from the formal decorum of the meeting. At this time, please turn off or mute any electronic devices. Mr. Clerk.
Zoning ordinance on final reading planning board attachments. Item number 5, ordinance to rezone property located northwest of 11th and Mason Streets from heavy industrial district to central business district. Property is also located within an ACI 1PL. Planning board and planning department recommend approval.
Public hearing on agenda item number 5 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded. No lights. Roll call.
Milton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Festerson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
5 is passed 7-0. Item number 6, ordinance to rezone property located at 1624 Cummings Street from downtown service district to central business district. Property is also located within an ACI 1PL. Planning board and planning department recommend approval.
Public hearing on agenda item number 6 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Second.
Moved and seconded. No lights. Roll call.
Milton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Festerson.
Yes.
Gurnett. Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
6 is passed 7-0. 7 and 8 are one case. 7 is ordinance to rezone property located at 6315 Center Street from general office district to community commercial district. 8 is ordinance to amend the boundaries of the major commercial corridor overlay district to incorporate in that district the property located at 6315 Center Street. Planning board and planning department recommend approval.
Public hearing on agenda items 7 and 8 are today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Second. Moved and no further lights. Roll call.
Milton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Festerson.
Yes.
Gurnett. Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
7 and 8 are passed 7-0. Resolutions, rate preliminary plats, plats and subdivision agreements. 9 and 10 are one case. 9 is resolution of the preliminary plat entitled Pepperwood Village Replat 2, located at 520 North 152nd Avenue Circle, along with attached conditions. Acceptance and preparation of final plat is hereby authorized. A, Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. 10 is the replat transmitted herewith entitled Pepperwood Village Replat 2 is hereby approved. A, Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing on agenda items 9 and 10 are today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed.
Second.
Moved and seconded, no lights, roll call.
Milton.
Yes.
Pauls. Thompson. Festerson.
Yes.
Gurnett. Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
9 and 10 are adopted 7-0. Item number 11, resolution that the preliminary plat entitled Grandview, located north of 204th and F Streets, along with attached conditions, hereby accepted and preparation of final plat is hereby authorized. A, Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing on agenda item number 11 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon. Jim Boucher, 10250 Regency Circle. Wish you happy holidays, council members, and Happy New Year to everybody. I'm here today to talk about briefly the preliminary plat for the Grandview subdivision, which is located northwest of 204th and F Street. It's 187 single-family lots and one multifamily lot that we believe will ultimately be an assisted living and combination with some villas and some single-family lots. Jeff Lake is here today from the engineering side. If you have any engineering questions on the project, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have and ask for your support today on the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed.
Second.
Moved and seconded, no lights, roll call.
Milton.
Yes.
Pauls. Thompson. Festerson.
Yes.
Gurnett. Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
11 is adopted 7-0. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7H, due to no meetings being held December 29th, January 5th, and January 19th, agenda item number 12 shall be laid over 5 weeks to January 26th for publication and public hearing. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7H, agenda item number 13 shall be laid over 5 weeks to January 26th. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7H, agenda items number 14 through 15 shall be laid over 3 weeks to January 12th for publication and public hearing. Liquor, item number 16, Sam and Louis, 2949 North 204th Street, catering liquor license, new application, no location, they currently hold a Class I liquor license.
Thank you. Public hearing on agenda item number 16 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. How do we want to handle this?
I'll do move late over
3 weeks?
3 weeks.
Okay. So I'll second it.
Yeah,
No lights, roll call.
because we've had the public hearing.
And continue the public hearing.
Oh, we did. Well, the 45th day is January 1st. If our attorney could come down here, we'll ask him a question. I think it belongs to the public hearing.
I'm sorry.
This has been laid over once. This will be the second time. The 45th day is January 1st. If we don't have a recommendation down by then, does that not mean that it goes without a recommendation?
That is correct.
Okay. So if we can lay it over, but then it's going to go down as a no recommendation.
Can I ask, have we had any communication with them?
Nope. They've been notified that it was laid over. They requested layover. We laid it over for them, but we haven't heard anything back from them that they wanted it laid over anymore or couldn't be here
So the last layover was requested by them?
by them. Well,
And then-
because they didn't have their list in so we could notify. But they knew all about it and they were supposed to be here, so I don't know what happened.
Okay. When do we have to have it?
Well, we should have it done before the first
Would be
of the
done
year to have it to Lincoln if we want to make a recommendation. If we don't,
Otherwise, it just goes down no recommendation.
that's right.
I don't know. I don't know what we do. Do we want to lay it over, or do we want to, because I don't know that we deny it. They're not here.
I don't want to deny it.
Yeah.
I guess we can lay it over, but I don't know that that's going to matter. will it?
Well, the commission will
Because it'll still be too late.
Right, and the commission can still make their decision.
And
Can we place it on file? Would it be, can we place it on file?
Well, I
I don't know.
don't think we want to do that. They're requesting something.
Okay.
I think we should either send it down with a recommendation, or no recommendation because they didn't show up, or something.
How about if we move to no recommendation because they didn't show up?
I would say so.
That's fine.
No recommendation because they didn't show up. So it's
Sure.
nothing negative. Just.
Second. Roll call.
Milton.
Yes.
Pauls. Thompson. Festerson. Gurnett. Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
16 is no recommendation. Item number 17, Mercury, 329 South 16th Street, Suite 3. Class C liquor license, new application, new location.
Public hearing on agenda item 17 is today. Proponents, please.
Mr. President, members of the council, Mike Kelly, 7134 Pacific, appearing here with Mr. Colin Breen. This is across from the Orpheum. What they propose to do here is have kind of a wine bar, upscale cocktails to accommodate Orpheum crowds. That is what their plan is, be a very upscale place. With that, we're here for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed.
Move the approval.
Moved and seconded. No further lights. Roll call.
Milton.
Yes.
Pauls. Thompson. Festerson. Gurnett. Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
And Jerem passes a second time for a potential conflict of interest. Item number 17 is adopted, 601 passing. Item number 18, Polly's at 6750 Mercy Road, Suite 101. Request permission for an addition to their pending Class C and catering liquor license of an outdoor area.
Public hearing on agenda item 18 is today. Proponents, please.
Hello, Council. My name is Jeff Lohmeyer, 958 Fawn Parkway. Company is Local Inc., Polly's. Looking to patio liquor license.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Pete? I'm sorry. Yeah, you can move in a second. Mr. Festerson.
Thanks, Mr. President. I support it, too. I just wanted to say I was at the facility last week.
Yeah.
Looks great. I know you'll do well there, and the patio, I think, will be a nice addition to also match many of the other patios in Exarban Village that'll be
Appreciate that, Pete.
along the green space there. So nice job.
Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded. Dr. Thompson.
Yes, just to say welcome to the neighborhood. It's not my neighborhood, but it's close to my neighborhood.
Okay.
And
I'll stop in.
you bet. Hey, Pauly is an old Tech High Trojan. I
That's
always
right.
support Pauly.
Okay.
But you guys know how to pick a spot. That is a prime spot. And
Yeah.
you'll have a lot of traffic.
I appreciate that.
You bet.
Yeah.
Been moved and seconded. No further lights. Roll call.
Milton. Pauls. Thompson. Festerson. Gurnett. Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
18 is adopted.
Thank you very much.
7-0. Item number 19, Residence Inn, Omaha Exarban Village, 1717 South 67th Street. Request permission to appoint Andrew Harris, manager. There was a request to lay this over 3 weeks and continue the public hearing.
Moved and seconded to lay it over for 3 weeks and continue the public hearing. No lights. Roll call.
Milton.
Yes.
Pauls. Thompson. Festerson. Gurnett. Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
Did Jerem pass or yes?
Pass.
Pass. Pass the second time for potential conflict of interest. 19 is laid over, 6-0 on passing. Item number 20, Omaha Marriott Hotel, 10220 Regency Circle. Request permission to appoint Michael Staton, manager.
Public hearing on agenda item number 20 is today. Proponents, please.
Hello, my name is Michael Staton, 9473 Spencer Street, the Omaha Marriott Hotel.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed.
Second.
Moved and seconded. No further lights. Roll call.
Milton.
Yes.
Pauls. Thompson. Festerson.
Yes.
Gurnett. Jerem.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
20 is approved, 7 to
you.
0. Item 21, Baghdad Lounge, 2823 South 84th Street. Request permission to appoint Michael Gardner manager.
Public hearing on agenda item number 21 is today. Proponents, please.
My name is Michael Gardner. I'm here to approach to be the manager for the Baghdad Lounge for Tanger Temple.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? I'm sorry.
Which one?
Oh, this is 22. 21. DJ's Dugout.
Well, okay.
I'm sorry, we'll catch you.
No, that's okay.
Well, no,
My liquor license, my liquor report is backwards, that's why.
okay. Yeah, we'll get you in just a second.
Okay. 21 should be DJ's Dugout at 1003, 1009 Capitol Avenue. Request permission to appoint Vicki Rush manager, as well as the manager for the 2102 South 67th Street.
Public hearing on agenda item number 21 is today. Proponents, please.
Greg Pivovar, 2312 Cornhusker, Bellevue, Nebraska. This is just a switching, well, kind of a switching of managers. They're opening a new facility in Plattsmouth. The Plattsmouth manager, or the downtown manager is moving to Plattsmouth. Vicki Rush is moving from Exorbitant Village, where she was manager before, to the downtown, and they're naming a new manager, Ms. Blair, at the Exorbitant facility.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Moved and seconded. No lights. Roll call.
Milton.
Yes.
Pauls. Thompson. Festerson. Gurnett. Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
21 is approved,
Thank
7
you.
to 0. Now, item 22 is Baghdad Lounge, requesting permission to appoint Michael Gardner.
Public hearing on agenda item number 22 is today. Proponents, please.
Mike Gardner is my name. I'm supposed to be the manager for the Baghdad Lounge at 2823 South 84th Street.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Is there a motion? 22?
Move the approval.
Moved and seconded. No lights. Roll call.
Milton.
Yes.
Pauls. Thompson. Festerson. Gurnett. Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
22 approved, 7 to 0. Item number 23 and 24 go together. They're all appointing the same manager to a bunch of stores. 23 is the Hinky Dinky at 2900 Leavenworth Street. 24 is Bag and Save at 5110 South 108th, 2650 North. Yeah, because they're all appointing the same manager. North 90th Street, 15370 Weir Street, 14444 West Center Road, and 3003 North 108th Street. The Family Fair at 5019 Grover and 820 North Saddle Creek Road. The No Frills at 8005 Blondo, 3548Q, 7402 North 30th, 3026 South 24th, and 1826 Vinton, all appointing Lonnie Agers managers.
Public hearing on agenda items 23 and 24 today. Proponents, please.
There you go.
Hi, my name's Donnie Wild, and I'm representing Lonnie Eggers, who's on medical leave.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Items 23 and 24. Second, roll call.
Milton.
Yes.
Pauls. Thompson. Festerson. Gurnett. Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
23 and 24 approved, 7 to 0. Item number 25, Jazz.
Did you pass? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yes.
Item 25, Jazz and Louisiana Kitchen, 1421 Farnham Street. Request permission to appoint Austin Jeffries manager.
Public hearing on agenda item 25 is today. Proponents, please.
Here we go.
I'm Ashton Jeffries, new manager at Jazz.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Moved and seconded. No further lights. Roll call.
Milton. Pauls. Thompson. Festerson. Gurnett. Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
25 is approved, 7-0. Item number 26, Longhorn Steakhouse, 7425 Dodge Street, Suite 103. Request permission to appoint Amy Bodner, manager.
Public hearing on agenda item 26 is today. Proponents, please.
My name is Amy Bodiner, and I'm with Longhorn Steakhouse, 18302 Dewey Avenue.
Thank you.
It says right there.
Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Public hearing is closed.
Real great steaks, like the place, keep up the good work, and move approved.
Thank you.
Moved and seconded and thirded. No further lights. Roll call.
Milton. Pauls. Thompson. Festerson. Gurnett. Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
26 is approved, 7-0. Item number 27, Mai Tai 2 at 2279 South 97th Street. Request permission to appoint Ryan Petanu, manager.
Public hearing on agenda item 27 is today. Proponents, please.
Hey, Council. My name is Panupong Petanu. I go by Ryan. It's my nickname. I'm here for White Elephant LLC doing business as Mai Tai 2, 2279 South 67th Street.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Moved and seconded. No further lights. Roll call.
Milton. Pauls. Thompson. Festerson. Gurnett. Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
27 is approved, 7-0. Item number 28, Tobacco Huts. At 4865 Center Street, at 5827 Maple, 5434 North 103rd, and 6510 South 84th Street. Request permission to appoint Candace Russell, manager.
Public hearing on agenda item 28 is today. Proponents, please.
Candid Russell, 2570 Mason, manager at Tobacco Hut.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Public hearing is closed.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. No further lights. Roll call.
Milton. Pauls. Thompson. Festerson. Gurnett. Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
28 is approved, 7-0. Item 29, the Target stores request permission to appoint Patrick Dietrich, manager. There are 6 locations.
Public hearing on agenda item number 29 is today. Proponents, please.
Hi, my name is Pat Dietrich with Target Stores, 518 South 51st Avenue.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Public hearing is closed. Moved and seconded. No further lights. Roll call.
Milton. Pauls. Thompson. Festerson. Gurnett. Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
29 is approved, 7-0.
Thank you very much.
Item number 30, Walgreens request permission to appoint Stephen Roker, manager of their 20 locations in the city of Omaha.
Public hearing on agenda item 30 is today. Proponents, please.
Steve Roker, Walgreens District Manager.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, are there any opponents who wish to be heard? Seeing none, public hearing is closed.
Second.
Moved and seconded. No further lights. Roll call.
Milton. Pauls. Thompson. Festerson. Gurnett. Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
30 is approved, 7-0. Consent agenda. Any member of the City Council may cause an item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from consent agenda shall be taken up by City Council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by City Council rules of order.
Public hearing on agenda items numbers 31 through 45 were held on December 15, 2015.
Approved.
Moved and seconded. No further lights. Roll call.
Milton. Pauls. Thompson. Festerson. Gurnett. Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
31 through 45 are passed, 7-0.
The public hearing on agenda items numbers 46 through 64 are today. If you wish to address the City Council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by your name, address, who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent. Public hearing is closed. Second. Roll call.
Milton.
Yes.
Pauls.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Festerson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
46 through 64 are adopted, 7-0. Ordinance on final reading, item 65, ordinance to approve an agreement between the city and Black Men United for facility improvements which would provide pre-vocational training. A is an amendment.
Public hearing on agenda item number 65 was held last week on 2015. Is there a motion?
On the amendment?
On the amendment? Second. Got a couple of questions. Mr. Hamilton? Well, Mr. Gurnett is up first. Mr. Gurnett?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Hamilton, a few months ago, you sent me an invitation to come and visit. I responded back within 72 hours and then never heard from you again in regards to that. That concerns me. I will be supporting this today, but I think if you're going to brush off a city councilman like that, you may have problems getting help in the future from anybody.
Can I comment?
So please, when you send out an invitation, make sure you respond back so someone knows when they need to come and visit. I would have loved to have seen the facility, but in reading the documents that you did send and having an opportunity to share in the listening during the public hearing, I just wanted to let you know, one, I think I heard enough, but that was a concern to me, because I would have loved to compare the verbal word and the written word to actually on site. But I will be supporting this today. So, no need to respond.
Thank you. I just have one question. Mr. Hamilton, you know, as a result of some actions that occurred yesterday, some people had some concerns, and I know it's in your contract that you are going to be an equal opportunity employer, but I just want you to say for the record that you intend to serve whoever comes through the doors of the Kamani Center.
Yes.
Your name, please.
My name is Willie Hamilton.
Address.
I am the 4200 North 30th Street. I'm the president and founder of Black Men United. And for the record, even though our focus is our black boys and girls, it's open to everyone. And we've always operated like that.
Thank you. That answers the question. Are there any? There seems to be no other questions. It's been moved and seconded. There's no further lights. Roll call.
It's on the amendment. Milton?
Yes.
Pauls? Thompson?
Yes.
Festerson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Jerem? Mr. President.
Yes. Second. Roll call.
Milton?
Yes.
Pauls? Thompson?
Yes.
Festerson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Jerem? Mr. President.
Yes.
65 is passed as amended. Item number 66, ordinance to approve an agreement with the Greater Omaha Chamber of Commerce, wherein the Chamber established the program known as the REACH program. A is an amendment.
Thank you. The public hearing was held on last week on 2015. Is there a motion?
Second.
The amendment has been moved and seconded. I have several questions that I would like to raise before we take the vote here today. Not for you right now. Stan, if you could come up, please. Can you give your name and address, please, for the record?
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Stan Senna. I am the President and CEO of the Mountain Plains Minority Supplier Development Council. We have offices here in Omaha, Nebraska, 2505 North 24th Street.
Thank you. And can you give us a little background on what your organization does?
I would be happy to. We're a 42-year-old nonprofit 501c3. We have offices in Denver, Colorado, Omaha, Nebraska, Wichita, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri. Our mission is to work with our corporate members, our government entity members, and our municipal entity members to find capable, qualified, small business and minority-owned firms for them to do business with and provide contracting opportunities.
And you've been here for how long?
Our organization has been here since the mid-'80s.
Okay. And part of your reason for being here and having concerns about this particular instance, if you can give us some background, please.
I'd love to. It's our feeling, it's our estimation that the city has skipped a step in the process. This is an important issue for the business community, for the small business community, for the minority business community in the city of Omaha. It occurs to us in our experience with other municipalities and other government entities that because this is such an important issue, typically these entities go out to the community to determine in a solicitation process who are the most qualified entities that provide these type of services. We believe that the city of Omaha missed that step, and it's our request that this council delay the vote. It's our request that this city council directs the city of Omaha to go back and research and find those entities, those capable and qualified entities out in the city of Omaha that are able to satisfy these types of services.
Were you led to believe that there was going to be some sort of a RFQ or an RFP process?
Yes, we were with the city staff.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Davis, please, if you could come up. Name and address for the record, please.
Dick Davis, 1313 Cummings.
Mr. Davis, give us a little bit of your background.
We've been doing business here in Omaha for 35 years. Our first project was the Northern Border Project, which was $1.2 billion, and we were able to save $4.5 million on that project and achieve 400% over goal. That's when I was working for Northern Plains Natural Gas Company, and the project was Northern Border. So we have a history of doing a business philosophy program.
In terms of your small emerging business, though, what has been your track record as it relates to that?
Our track record for the last 15 years has been very strong. All of you have seen reports on TV and on the paper regarding those folks that have experienced our program, and we have always performed and have basically kept extremely good records to demonstrate that we have, and that's one of the reasons why I was able to why I gave you folks some literature, so you know that we do produce and we can produce, and we're going to continue to produce.
Let me address for you some key indicators here. For example, when we started the Small Emerging Business Program, when we initially engaged it in 2010, the concern was making sure that entities that reside, live, or work within census tracts where poverty is 30% or higher. Our goal was to try and increase the amount of revenue that goes to those particular companies. Can you state for the record in the last 5 years the work that you have done, what that amount leads to?
Well, what happens is that in our contract, we made sure that we put that emphasis on the poor communities, and based on that, we were able to, in terms of the Tier 1 contractors, they basically had a 57% increase in the 5 years that they were doing business. Okay, that's compared to the 27% increase of the total population. So in terms of the goal of putting more dollars into the most poverty areas, we doubled the average.
Let me back up for a minute and talk about further your credentials. In terms of the Small Business Administration, you were awarded, you were given an award. Can you talk about that?
Yes. We in 2012, we were recognized as the Small Business Minority Champion, not as a minority, but a champion for minorities. And based on all of the results that we've had, not only here in Omaha, but all over the nation. We have a footprint nationwide, and we've been able to do very well as we work in these communities.
Would you consider yourself an expert?
We are, based on our patented database. Specifically, we're the only ones in America that has a patented database related to capacity building, and we're very proud of that. And we also basically, through the awards and the various contracts we had from West Coast to East Coast to Gulf Coast, we have been considered experts, and we go outside of Nebraska to do business.
Was there any effort during this whole process where we were attempting to gain best practices? Were you ever engaged in that process, or did anyone ever ask you to be engaged in that process?
In terms of this process?
Yes.
Zero. There were series of meetings, there were a lot of conversations, etc., but I was excluded, so let's say blackballed, from all of those processes.
Okay, and in terms of the number of contracts that were awarded from companies that you have worked with, can you give us the dollar total of what those contracts were? How many were awarded by the city, and what the total savings would be based on those numbers?
Yes, and I provided a slide that shows you that we identified over a 5-year period 1,360 projects, awarded 205 contracts that generated $15 million. And the difference between our program participants' bid and the next bid equaled 2.1. And if you take about the $500,000, there was a nice net of 1.5 million. But I think sometimes, because folks, we are specialized experts, and sometimes people confuse or make a general statement about what that means. And so that's the reason why I gave you another slide that showed the issue of capacity. What that basically means is people will say they're capacity builders. But when I say that we did all of that work, I have records, because we have a database that shows that one example where the first contract a contractor had was with the Hilton expansion. And that contractor was his first entree into construction. And that was maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And we basically moved that person up to $1 million. They're at $1.5 million bonding right now. That's true capacity. People can basically say, you know, I've done this and done that, but in all these things, the reason why we've been successful nationwide, we've always had audit processes that says, here's a third-party verification of what we've done. And so in your slide, you're able to see that more than 60% of the people that were bonded generated 75% of the bonds, which was like 60 million. And 50% of those folks were from the poverty area. So when we talked and we tried to figure out the budget, and it was a limited budget because, you know, you have 4 particular areas that you need to work in terms of your small emerging business. And we basically have, we've been doing this for 35 years, and we know how to itemize cost. And so we could basically say that based on these factors, we needed to go to the open bid process. And when we did that, we were able to say, well, if we can achieve what we've been achieving, we can pay for ourselves, but also add additional savings to the city.
Can you talk about how many, in amount of dollars, how many contracts were awarded to small emerging businesses under your purview in the last 5 years?
Yes, I will basically say in the slide it says the awards were $29.5 million, and there were 30 participants that got that for 205 awards. But even more importantly, the bid submissions were at 145 million and 2,185. There is a technical process of capacity building and making sure that folks are successful. So you have to basically go through a process to make that happen. And so there's a lot of things there, but I'm most proud of the issue of the fact that we are stopping the stereotype of people of color that says that they basically cause higher price and lower quality. We basically had, over the last 5 years, we've had no bond losses, or bond losses over those 5 years. That's like, the nationwide is like 20%. So those folks, and you know they're from, and we have over here, we talk about the highest poverty area, 42% black, 30% Hispanic, 28% white, compared to the total population, which is in your slides, of 44% white, 29% black, 25% Hispanic. And my point to you is that I'm proud of the fact that I'm of color, and I can basically demonstrate to you, and you've seen on television and also in paper, that if you basically vet right and you do the right risk services, that those images of people of color cannot perform is very frankly wrong. We basically have 5 years of history to show you that, and we've got another 5 years before that. So I'm proud of the fact that we've done a very good job of taking away the stereotype, given the chance.
One final question for you, Mr. Davis, and that is, were you under the impression, as was Stand with Mountain Plains, were you under the impression that this, as late as June, that this was going to be a RFQ or an RFP process?
Well, yes, I know that there was supposed to be an RFP process, and I appreciate the support of the council to try to move that to an RFQ process, because at the end of the day, if you're not qualified to do this, it is a waste of money. I had a project in St. Louis that was a $1.2 billion project, and the director of, I call it inclusion right now, had basically brought me in and said, we got a problem because the contractors are basically arm in arm blocking the highway, and we need to basically do something right. So they gave us an RFQ, not an RFP. And we were able to basically say, give us time to do the database, give us time to do the risk analysis in terms of the profile of the contractors. And we basically were able to do that. And what's really important is the fact that we did some analysis, and we thought that we could sort of provide a projected of $2 million to go against the program. But what they wanted was going to cost twice that. And so now, we already had the contract. But we said to them, well, look, it's easy, because we can unitize this, and we can basically have a higher bar of the qualification of the folks we're in, and we can lower the bar in terms of the projects that we have. And they basically said, no, we want to basically tell the folks everybody's qualified and everybody's there. They were underfunding the project. And my point is I walked away from that project because I've been doing this for 35 years. And I think it's extremely important for you to look at and do your analysis of what you're doing. And when you speak to the community, that when you say that you can do these things, you could be able to do it.
Thank you. But you were under the impression that there was going to be some sort of a competitive bid process that was going to take place in this particular instance.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Davis. If I could, let me call on our Human Rights and Relations Director. Let me ask you, first of all, it was said last week that the REACH program had certified or had brought into being a number of new small emerging businesses. Mr. Danner, let me ask you this question first. When you certify businesses as an SEB, do you ask them, as part of the questioning, or at least it's my understanding that part of the questioning is how they found out and where they came from to apply?
Spencer Danner, Human Rights and Relations. That is correct. We do have on our application that we ask where they come from. Can you break down the numbers for me that you currently have of new SEBs and where they came from? We currently have 256 small emerging businesses that are certified as SEBs. Of that 256, within the last 6 months, we started from 187 and now we're at 256. Of that, the Omaha Chamber of Commerce has referred, at least identified from the SEBs, 3 of those companies. Those 3 companies, 2 are actually certified now, which is one insurance agency and one bonding/insurance agency, and the other is a environmental engineering firm that is currently still researching their options to be certified. The other ones that have came, I would say, we've had anywhere from 60 to 70 over the last 6 months, which is a huge increase to our SEB program. The majority of those have come over because of some community outreach efforts by the Human Rights and Relations Department, and due to the Omaha Public School bond program, they actually require the SEBs, the small businesses, to be certified as small emerging business through the city of Omaha. So we have approximately 13 certified small emerging businesses that were certified because they went to OPS first.
Okay, so 13 came from OPS, a significant other number came from outreach from Human Rights and Relations, and 3, at least as they identified in the questionnaire, came somehow from the REACH program.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Danner. Mr. Durant. You were at a meeting, a recent meeting this past summer with a number of contractors. And in that meeting you stated, or at least I was told that you stated, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I was told that you stated that Davis Companies was out and all of their contracts were going to be nullified and that your group was in. Do you recall saying that?
No, there are some questions that people construed differently. I was asked about our REACH program, and that our REACH program would, in fact, that we were looking at having a number of different partners, including the City of Omaha, Omaha Public Schools, Metropolitan Community College, and UNMC.
Okay, but you never said that Davis Companies were out and you were in?
Correct.
Okay, that never happened?
I did not state that.
You didn't state that. Okay, thank you. I'm done with my questioning. I just want people, especially those who were the contractors who were here. I'm done. Mr. Durant. I just wanted the contractors, and I wish they were here, who were here last week in support of REACH, to understand why I'm not supporting this. In the beginning of this process, when this thing first started, and I first started asking questions about what we were going to do about our small emerging business program, I was told that the Davis companies were out primarily because they did not, and I was told this by the mayor's office, I was told that they did not keep the SEB numbers up. But that was not within the scope of work of Davis companies. And so there have been several stories that have been told over the last 2 years. And I said 2 years ago that this was going to be a process that was going to end up taking 2 years, and at the end of it we were going to be starting over, which is essentially what we're starting to do. We have a couple of companies now that have significant experience in doing this kind of work, and what we're getting ready to do today is support a contract for an organization that has that say they do this but have no track record in terms of how well they've performed, while you have 2 other companies who have performed. In addition to that, you had the 2 companies, as well as myself, that were told as recently as July that there was going to be an RFQ process so that we would know that it was going to be fair. And then all of a sudden, the REACH program comes about, and there was no indication and there was no reasoning why we went away from an RFQ process to this sole source contract. And quite frankly, when we're talking about the dollars, I don't believe that $450,000 is going to be enough to get this done. So this is not something that I intend to support. I think there were some things that went on here where there was some questionable behavior and some questionable things that were done throughout this whole process. And when we're talking about fairness, and when we're talking about specifically minorities who have concerns about being treated fairly, when they see these kinds of things happen under questionable circumstances, where we deviate from policy, where we deviate from what we said we were going to do in the beginning to what we're going to do now, it raises concerns among people who really want to be treated fairly, especially those who have not been treated fairly before. The other thing, and my final comment will be, as was stated last week, there are concerns that in my district about the Chamber of Commerce and the fairness and the willingness to work. And there have been several instances where things like REACH have started off with a bang, and after a couple of years they've ended up with a whimper. And so based on the history, based on the questionable practices that have taken place over these last 2 years, I just wanted people to know that there is no circumstance under which I'm going to vote for this. Maybe it'll pass, maybe it won't, I'm not sure, but I wanted people to understand, I wanted my colleagues as well as those in the audience and those in television, especially the contractors who supported REACH, to understand the logic and the reasoning for why I'm not going to support it. With that, Ms. Melton, do you have any, were you up? Ms. Melton?
Yes, thank you. Well, I was wondering if, I see Mr. Bielik back there, would you be able to come down and maybe answer some questions that were raised today that I don't believe were addressed last week?
Marty Bielik, Mayor's Office.
Yeah, and Mr. Bielik, could you explain to me the difference between what we had before and what we're doing now with the REACH program, maybe the difference in benefits and why we didn't do an RFP or RFQ on this?
I would be glad to. A while back, and by that I mean maybe a year and a half or so ago, you know, there's been a lot of talk up at this podium today about people of color. It was actually people of color that came to the mayor's office a year and a half ago and said to us, and I was there, you're not doing enough. There's opportunities in Omaha right now with regard to job opportunities that are endless. The city of Omaha has big projects, multi-billion-dollar projects, the school system as well, and you're not doing enough. There's unemployment in North Omaha that's too high. What are you going to do? Well, since we felt that enough wasn't being done and we were being told that, we needed to do more. Just that simple. So we had an opportunity. Chamber of Commerce came to us and says, listen, economic development is what we do, and we're good at it. And we've got about 3,000 members, and those are job opportunities. The piece that we really need is the educational piece, and that's really what, to me, that's what this is all about. How are you going to educate people so that they have the skills, the job skills that they need, so they can take advantage of the opportunities that exist in Omaha today and for the next 20 years. So I happen to know that the current, well, the other thing is there's some criticism of the Chamber of Commerce. We don't care what's going on in North Omaha. Now, I don't know what it was like 5 years ago or 10 years ago in the city of Omaha. I don't know what that relationship was like then. But I can tell you what the relationship is like now. I know the folks that run the Chamber of Commerce. We meet with them constantly, and I know what their intentions are. I know what they're trying to accomplish. I know how they want to accomplish it. I know that they feel their partnership with Metro Community College is important. The Metro College has a curriculum. They have coursework that is ideal and actually is tailored toward the small and emerging business, primarily contractors, that will give them the job skills that they're going to need to then take advantage of the networking opportunities that the Chamber has because of all of their members, to provide them with opportunities so they can get started. They can start up and then add capacity and add jobs and be employers and help us with our problem with 22% employment in some parts of the city. That's how this became about a year and a half ago. We were talking about it in our office. It's not like we just decided that, change is good. This was something that came to us. We didn't go to it. And then you might argue, well, I mean, the other part of your question is, well, what about the RFP? Well, I don't ever remember us making commitments to anybody about the process that we would use. Basically, the Chamber came to us and says, hey, this is what we do. We're good at it. We already contract with the Chamber of Commerce on Prospect Omaha and other initiatives. We like doing work with them. We know that they partner well with the university. We felt that it would be ideal for us to be able to work with the Chamber. In fact, I actually felt fortunate that they stepped forward. I know Winsley, I know Randy, I know David. I felt fortunate they came to us with the solution because they're a big organization, they're well funded, and to be quite honest with you, they get it and they care about North Omaha. I believe that. That's why we're doing this. And we felt like in some cases we do an RFP or an RFQ because we need to find out who the good vendors are out there. Maybe there's a big unknown, maybe there's a question mark and we need to have an answer, so we do the RFQ, RFP. In this case, we felt certain that the Chamber of Commerce would provide the services that we need, and we also feel that, and I know you do too, that if this passes today, that we need to monitor what they're doing for us. We need to be able to look, I was saying we need to be able to look back a year from now and say, hey, did we get $130,000 worth of services out of the Chamber of Commerce? The mayor's actually asked for quarterly reports so we can monitor them throughout the year, but anyway, I'll stop right there for now. Do you have any other questions?
Well, no, I think that those were the concerns that were brought up today, and much like what we just passed in 60, and the agenda item before us, 65, we had the Kamani Center who is doing a reentry program for those, I think mainly men, but people coming out of the prisons, and there's many other organizations in the city of Omaha that do that as well. Isn't that right, Mr. Bielek?
That is correct. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you brought that up because Davis Companies offers valuable services. And I don't know that, the Chamber, what they're offering at the REACH program and what Davis Companies does, those aren't mutually exclusive. They're services, valuable services that he still has to offer, and I value them. And I could say the same thing about Willie Hamilton for that matter. He has a niche that he's trying to fill, and that is offenders getting out of prison, again, needing job skills, needing employment. Otherwise, recidivism is going to be high, and we're all going to pay for it.
But we didn't do an RFP for that either, did we?
No, we did not.
Okay, I was just kind of making a comparison that sometimes you have organizations that are out there in the city of Omaha that are helping other people in our city with issues that need to be addressed. We don't necessarily do an RFP if we're going to partner with them in order to help them make their organization a success. Is that right?
The truth is, yes, you're exactly right. And to be honest, we've had a list of organizations that fall into that category last week with me. Catholic Charities was amongst them, I think, and then there's others as well. They're organizations that have a history of providing valuable services to our community. So what we do is contribute on an annual basis, and we feel comfortable with what they're doing for us.
Okay. Thank you, unless you have anything to add that you've heard today.
No, I don't. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Bielik.
Dr. Thompson, Mr. Bielik, I would like for you not to go too far, though. Dr. Thompson?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Windsor? Have to identify yourself again.
Winsley Durand, Greater Omaha Chamber, 1301 Harney Street.
Yes, how do you answer to the comparison that you're a person that's just arrived on the scene and that you've only helped 3 of the current businesses? How do you respond to that?
All right, well, I guess there's 2 questions there. One is just arriving on the scene. Well, that is inaccurate. I've been helping small contractors in the Omaha area, and specifically in the North Omaha area, but all across the city since 1997. Actually, it started in 1996. Initially started this after having a stint with the financial services industry. And in fact, Mr. Davis gave me an opportunity to work with him back in the mid-90s. And I am grateful for that opportunity to have worked with him and gained some experience there. But I've taken that and have also had a great deal of other experiences that I put all together, and all of these experiences over the last almost 20 years, working with small businesses and small contractors, taking all of that and putting together a comprehensive plan that is bringing together education, financial literacy, all of the different aspects of a business that people need. You can provide some very narrow technical expertise, and they can get a project, but they also need to have that access to capital so they can float the payroll, so they can buy materials, so that and then they need the education piece, because without that education, if you give them the access to capital, it's just enough rope to do some damage to yourself. So there are it's a comprehensive set of education that is brought to the table for these small and emerging firms, so they can truly build capacity and have long-term viability past that one project that they land.
Of the current 256 certified SAB companies we have, how many have you helped to get to the table so far?
So we know that there are at least 8 that came to our office. We sat down, helped them fill out the paperwork. But there is also a great deal of outreach that we've been doing. Every time that we have a group educational session, we will talk with folks about the value of becoming a certified small emerging business. We also talk when we have our one-on-ones with these small contractors and encourage it. I have a stack of the applications that I will pull off the shelf and hand to them for them to fill out. If they have questions, they can call me, but I also direct them to talk specifically to Maria Partita. So of those that have gone all the way through the process, we're not sure exactly how many have gone from where we handed them the paperwork or talked to them in a group setting till they've made it all the way through the process, but we know that we have touched quite a few. The OPS coming on board and utilizing the system has done a great deal for the enrollment in the program. And the Human Rights and Relations Program, Maria and Spencer's group, they do a fantastic job of getting out and spreading the word. We look at it as we are part of that team, and whatever it is that we can do to help that team succeed, that's what we're here to do.
In terms of what is provided to SEBs, as far as I'm understanding it, it's education, then there's technical assistance, and then there's bonding. For the lay person that's out there that aren't too, educated about the whole scene, what's the difference between those 3?
So I guess education is a common theme throughout. So when we talk about education, it is providing that access to information that is needed for that small business to be able to succeed. So that is inclusive of financial literacy. It is inclusive of credit remediation. It's inclusive of identifying those people that are critical in the procurement process, whether that be with the City of Omaha or Metro or whoever it is. You specifically mentioned bonding, so there it is, again, an education piece. It is providing them information about the bonding process, things that are going to be required for them as they go to a bonding agent to seek that bonding. We had an information session where we had a underwriter from Des Moines that came and specifically talked with the small and emerging firms about exactly what it is that they look for, help them understand the process of bonding, what bonding agents and underwriters are looking for. So all of that falls under the purview of education.
Technical assistance.
Technical assistance would be assisting people with learning more about the bidding process. Some of the, again, education is provided in terms of what they need. We have architecture, engineering, construction firms that have all volunteered their time saying, we want to participate in this educational process to be able to provide small and emerging businesses the knowledge base that they need so that they can submit good and educated bids, where if they are the low bidder, that they will make money and they will be able to execute that contract and be successful so they can continue on getting more and more contracts.
Of those three, are there any other areas other than those three?
That is primarily the main focus we have.
Of those three, which one will REACH do the most? Which one will you really focus on?
Well, I think it's again, education is the main theme throughout. So it is providing folks the education for the topics that they need to succeed. Each firm is going to be a little bit different in terms of their knowledge base, what they know, and so they will each need different things brought to the table for them. Part of what we're looking at also is we are working at putting together a mentoring program that will also help them have somebody more experienced to help them guide them through the process and kind of point out those brick walls so they don't have to run into them. Again, all part of the education process. Everything that we do, we feel is part of the educational process.
What role will you play in bonding?
It is bond preparedness. It is making sure that people have the understanding, that they have the documents that they need in place, that they understand what those documents mean, what the different ratios are, and what is the standard for those ratios in their particular industry. Again, it is helping them to understand so that they can make good decisions. Those good decisions lead to greater access to capital and hopefully getting the bonding that they need in the future from an agent of their choice.
Will you refer them to bonding agencies, or will you have several in your cachet that you will have them look at? What's the connection there?
Many of them have insurance agents already because they're a business. They need to have insurance. There are requirements by the City of Omaha to have insurance in place. And some of those insurance agents can also offer bonding. Some of them can't. And in that case, we do have a listing of agents that they can take a look at, and they can then select who they want. They can go through the process and do their own due diligence to figure out which ones of those agents might be the best fit for them. We always encourage them to take a look at least two.
Earlier I heard Mr. Bielik say that the Davis Company offers valuable services, and then I think I heard you last week saying that that you're open to working with Davis agencies in the future. Is that something you're still open to?
We're open to partnering with anybody and everybody who wants to participate in the process. We're in talks with many different organizations on how we make those partnerships fit and work, and what people are bringing to the table. We are always looking to partner and work with people. It is a collaborative process. It is an inclusive process, and so yes.
I have heard, and I'm still doing my cross-checking, my fact-checking, but I heard that UNMC is working on that model where they're awarding the education piece to perhaps the chamber, and then the technical piece to various people, and Davis companies would be included in that list. So it seems like there's a model out there for that. That's just a comment. But I'd like to also say that we spend a lot of time talking about the past, and apparently it's very apparent that we're going to have to keep pushing towards the future now and trying to build something. And I kind of mentioned this last week, and I'm just reiterating that fair or not, the Chamber's reputation in North Omaha isn't the greatest. But what we need from you is to a double effort, a triple effort to not repeat the start off with a bang, end with a whimper story. And I'd have to really rely on you to make that happen. I don't think the city can move forward divided. I don't think a house can be divided against itself. And how can you have a part of town prosper and be part of the fold, and the chamber doesn't put their arms around them? I mean, that just doesn't make sense. I don't want to see partners going away from one another. I want to see them coming together. So obviously this is going to be kind of like sort of like a major crossing road, maybe a kind of a testing ground a little bit for the chamber, fair or not fair. But like I said last week, too much is given, much is required. And so I want to encourage you to make a triple effort to not only make REACH work, but to heal the wounds that are out there. And that may mean that you might have to take a couple of unfair criticisms or whatever, but get with me over lunch and I'll tell you I can write the book on unfairness, but you still are called to do what you have to do. And so I just want to emphasize that, and I want to say that the way to heal the issues in North Omaha is to build new bridges and to put your arm around everyone that will allow you to put your arms around them, and not worry so much about what happened in the past, but going towards the future. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Gurnett.
Thank you, Mr. President. Stick right by the front here, Mr. Durant, if you would. It was mentioned that the Chamber's reputation not too good in North Omaha. Well, I can tell you there was a time when it wasn't too hot in South Omaha. And they heard about that and pulled a lot of people together, pulled a lot of money together, did a long-term study and came back with the results. And from those results, there had to be one area that was picked out of the three that this study sort of focused in on. And the Chamber has done that. And then it sort of went off, not off of the radar scope, but the blip, instead of bright, got a little dimmer. And through the efforts of council staff and my office, connections were made, visits were made, and that blip is starting to get a little bit brighter. So I think they're at least doing the part in trying to heal the wounds that were created in South Omaha. Wednesday, would you come back up now? Just repeat your name for the record.
Winsley Duranda, Greater Omaha Chamber, 1301 Hardy.
And I know you got involved in this back in June and July, correct?
Correct.
And if I heard you correctly, from then until probably up maybe to last week, is that the big kickoff and the big push for this last part of this level 1 that we're on will be in starting right after the first of the year. Is that accurate to say?
Correct.
Okay. So that 256 number that was mentioned, there could be a sizable portion out of that that would come forward and see what the chamber offers. Or there could be new and that number could grow and walk through the chamber's door. Would that be accurate to say?
Correct.
And they would get the same treatment and the same offers, the same resources that you've offered these 3 that have come through the door already.
Correct.
Okay. As narrowing it back down to my district a little bit, because REACH is supposed to be for the entire city, correct?
Correct.
It's supposed to, let's see, reach every area city has. Okay. I mean, I'm just saying that could be the acronym for that. And did you not, within the last 10 days, get invited and attend a meeting with a local activist, myself, and several others from the Metro Community College, the Hill Group, I can't remember all that was in the room, in regards to using parolees and ex-offenders getting back into the workforce. Is that accurate?
Absolutely.
Okay. And were you allowed to give your perspective on how REACH could be part of that particular project?
Correct, yes. We've been invited by several entities, and this one in particular. We are looking to find ways to collaborate all across the city. Any way that we can provide value, we're there to do that.
Okay. Did you feel that there was value in attending that meeting?
Absolutely.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put that? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but there have been some in-depth questions asked here in the last couple of weeks, and I think we need to continue to put as close to solid numbers as we can. What would you say the value would that be between 1 and 10, 10 being the highest?
Yeah, I would probably say that it was a 10 because we are starting the process of collaboration and communication, and there are, in fact, last week when we had a number of the people that came up and spoke for the REACH program, people who had received assistance and helped their businesses grow, and those people who helped get started, there were a number of them that were ex-offenders. And so we have been helping people who are ex-offenders to create job opportunities, not only for themselves but for others. And we felt that there was a good fit with that meeting that we had last week with the group where you attended, where we can bring value not only to a issue that is workforce development, because there's a great pool of untapped workers, but there's also some of the people in that pool may also be potentially entrepreneurs that can get out and create and start their own, because they do have value and skill sets and things that they bring to the table. And so we'd love to work collaboratively to find a way to make sure that that works for all of Omaha.
Thank you, Mr. Duran. To my colleagues and our audience, sometimes I know that I have been accused of saying, well, the city limit stops at Martha Street. And I'll turn around and I'll say, well, some people think the city limit stops at Dodge Street. That's not the case. We have an opportunity to connect workable dots on this radar screen. It's like, that's why I get a kick out of all these transmission commercials that you see on TV. There's a lot of components in there, a lot of moving parts. And government is no different. There's a lot of moving parts to how things operate. When you got 10 different departments and they have a wide variety of programs, and sometimes we may have to tie in 2 or 3 different departments. We have to ask for outside expertise, and there are different forms of doing that. And we get that. I understand the mayor's chief of staff saying earlier how this all came about in response to, I want to listen very carefully because Council President Gray has some deep-rooted concerns in regards to how this all played out, and I respect those. And we're taking just in the in item 65 that we just went through. We would be saying, in essence, the city's taken an X amount of dollar risk here. In the unlikely event, if that fails, what does the city get back for that investment? Well, it's sort of a risk investment that we're putting in on that particular item. Okay? And we voted to take that risk. In this particular, in REACH, we have an expert in the field locally that has a track record of connecting those dots, and I know I wear down that phrase. I get that. I understand it. But I still think it's applicable nowadays. If we don't connect these pathways, it's like in the brain, all those little sensors up there that fire, and they fire in different directions to cause what's in here to come out here. I get tormented from time to time from various people in my district, and sometimes threatened. I'm used to that. Why aren't we spending that $130,000 to fill potholes? Well, we are spending that particular bucket of money for those. And there's another bucket of money that we make applicable to other programs. And when the mayor's office was approached saying there was a problem and something needs to be done, what is the city going to do about it? And an expert came forward and said, hey, we're good in this. How can we help? It reminded me of the program that we did a number of years ago with graffiti when we were just talking about it at a neighborhood group, and a neighborhood group says, how can we help? He said, well, you need to raise some money and get a consultant in here. They went out, they raised the money, hired the consultant, we formed a partnership with the city, and we're doing pretty good with that blueprint. But that's taken time. This is going to take a little bit of time. Item 65 is going to take a little bit of time. And I think with everybody's honest effort towards this and connecting these important dots, that end product is going to be something cool and something proud, another shining star for the city of Omaha. And what's happening around the country now, we can use a lot more of those. And we have education, We have people that do want to work, but maybe don't have the ability or the education and the knowledge. How do I get a bond? How do I get insurance? How do I get this, that, and other to become successful with my 2.5 work staff? I want to grow that to 200. How do I lay out that plan? I think we can reach that. They can reach it. We can reach it by reach. And I'm willing to take that risk. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Bealey, you could come forward, please.
Marty Bielek, Mayor's Office.
Thank you. I find your comments about not being aware of an RFP or an RFQ process, I find that interesting. I have, and I'm just going to speak for Mountain Plains and Davis companies because I know they have, but I can tell you what I have. I have at least 6 emails that I will make aware to you of conversations back and forth with the Human Resources Director, and was told as late as July that this was going to be an RFQ process. They were told that. I was told that. I have emails that reflect that. Did she operate in a vacuum? Because I have the emails and I can show them to you.
And I'm sure you do. But what I will tell you is I don't remember having a conversation talking about using an RFP process to do this. It became very apparent that there were services out there that we needed. Chambers offered them. Not only that, but they kind of offered a customized service for us. So we kind of tailored it to what we were looking for. We're happy with it. We didn't feel the need to do an RFP.
When did you decide that? Because as late as July, there were emails that came to at least the 3 of us and probably more that indicated that this was going to be an RFQ process. When did we decide that? And then let me add to that. In the process that you all went through, where you were talking about best practices, and I think best practices, we did best practices in 2010. I don't know why we were doing it again. But let's assume, let's pass that and say we did a series of 4 meetings where we talked about best practices. In every one of those meetings, it was talked about that this was going to be an RFQ process. So I wonder, when did it change?
I don't know that it's ever changed in my mind. All I'm going to tell you is that we, again, I know I'm repeating myself, but we don't always use the RFP process, the RFQ process. We've never felt like we were compelled to do so. We're certainly not compelled by state law. And if I can remind you, we did business for Davis companies for 10 years and never used an RFP process.
When did it change? Because this was an RFQ process, and your Human Resources Director we have emails from her stating that. In your process where you went through 4 different meetings to try to ascertain best practices, in every one of those meetings you said an RFQ process. And that was as late as July. So tell me when it changed, and why was not the people who assumed that this was going to be an RFQ process, including your council president, why weren't we notified?
Councilman, in my mind, it's never changed.
Okay. All right. Okay. Mr. Ali, if you could come to the microphone, please. And I'm going to stop after this, but were you at the contractors meeting in which, were you here earlier when I talked about comments that were made by Mr. Durant at a contractors meeting?
Yes, I was.
Were you at that contractors meeting?
Yes, I was.
Were the comments that I attributed to Mr. Durant, were those comments essentially made at that meeting?
Emphatically.
Would you state your name and address, please?
Name for the record.
Elijah Ali, 2912 North 26th Street.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm done, Mr. Ali. Thank you. I just wanted to, when we're talking about working with a community and doing what is right by that community, the one thing we ought to do is follow our processes and procedures that we claim that we have in place that start to be a moving target. And this is when you start having issues with all people, but especially people of color. When you start talking about a process, you engage in that process, people in good faith begin to work towards that process, and then all of a sudden, without warning, without notice, without anything, the process changes, and nobody can say when. And I don't want to do the dance about, in my mind, it never changed, because I've got the emails that indicate that we were talking about an RFQ process. So I don't want to get into all of that. I'm just simply telling my colleagues on the council that there is an issue of fairness here that I don't believe has been met. There are shenanigans that have been played throughout this whole 2-year process. And I said 2 years ago that, and when we're talking about it's going to take time to do this, we could have cut that time significantly in half, if not more, had we not used the experts that were available to us in the first place. If we had been asked, those of us who put this SEB ordinance together, and let's keep in mind, this is not the mayor's SEB ordinance. This is an ordinance that I sponsored. This is an ordinance that we sat in several meetings and hashed out and talked about best practices and talked about what would be the best way to do this. For example, we did not want to put the onus on Public Works to administer this program, but we had to do it at that time because the Human Rights and Relations Department was lacking a director and several staff. This has all been a questionable game to me, and I am not going to support it. And it does. And I guess I want to finish by just saying, if we're going to start off, I mean, if we're going to talk about bringing a community together, if we're going to talk about the chamber being responsive to a community, they ought to start by being fair in the first place and not having all these questions being raised. And the fact that there were emails that were sent that indicated that this was going to be an RFQ process. There were emails that were sent that told me specifically that this was going to be an RFQ process. And then to find out later, all of a sudden, reach, and we're going to do a sole source contract to an entity that has not demonstrated, and I'm sorry, you can say all day long that this is what the chamber does. The fact of the matter is they have no track record in this area. They have no track record that they could say to anyone. And so for me, this is highly questionable, and I will not be supporting it. And I'm done with my questioning because it appears right now that we're going to continue to play more games. So I'm just done. There's a motion and a second to approve. There's no further lights. Roll call. Yes.
I meant to.
Ms. Melton.
And then I don't want to delay this any longer. I just wanted to call on Mr. Danner just for a quick response to that, because I don't know whether this is going to pass or not, and I understand that you're not supportive of it, but in the event it does pass, I think that Mr. Danner is actually going to be watching this program pretty closely, and I would like him to state kind of what his role is for you and for the rest of the council.
Sure. Spencer Danner, Human Rights and Relations. If I may go back real quick first, I misquoted earlier when I said there were only 13 SEBs. There were actually 32 SEBs that listed Omaha Public Schools as a conduit of coming over, so I wanted to make sure that I did clarify that for the record. Secondly, I did mention the fact that there were the 3 that were referred over to REACH, and I know we concentrated on those 3, but I want to make sure we understand the majority of those individuals that did speak for REACH yesterday are already, last week are already certified SEBs. So just because they have only had 2 actually certified by the city, they have assisted small emerging businesses that are currently already certified. And we saw that from last week. The majority of those small emerging businesses that spoke, they being the Omaha Chamber of Commerce REACH program. Those individuals who spoke as proponents last week, the majority of those individuals are already certified with the city. So I just wanted to point that out. I wanted to make sure that was clear, that we weren't just saying that there were only 3 as a whole. It's just from a straight certification standpoint. And to answer Councilwoman's request, I would say that as I stated last week, the Human Rights and Relations Department is dedicated to ensure the success of this program. We need to ensure, as a partnership, not only with the Chamber of Commerce, with the City Council, and with the administration, that we all have to understand that the individuals that are affected are the small emerging businesses. not the administration, not the Human Rights and Relations Department, and not the City Council. It is the small and emerging businesses that are truly benefiting from this program. So we all need to ensure that we're not only all working together, but we ensure that we are holding the chamber and whoever the chamber utilizes as partner agents, like the NEF and our Davis companies or whoever partners with that with the REACH program. We need to ensure accountability and transparency throughout the entire process. The administration has asked for quarterly reports. My department, and I've worked with Winsley on this, has asked for monthly reports, and not just on the success of the program and certain characteristics, but we have outlined a lot of items that we would like to see to ensure that we are not only seeing the success of these small emerging businesses, but we are seeing the success long-term of the workforce in the city of Omaha. And if this is the route that we have chosen to go through, my department will ensure that the REACH program is moving forward for the next 3 years, helping not only the North and South Omaha community, but this is a citywide issue that happens to have North and South Omaha as its primary targets. But this is a citywide issue. And myself and the department is committed to ensuring that working with Winsley and the Chamber of Commerce, we're going to make sure for the next 3 years that this is successful. We're going to play our part just like the administration will play their part and the community will play their part. And with your vote today, the council will play their part as well. So I appreciate you, Councilwoman, for allowing me to speak, but I wanted to make sure that I did communicate the human rights and relations support to make sure this initiative is successful. Thank you.
Thank you. I have nothing further. I don't recall if anybody's moved to approve the amendment.
There was a motion and a second.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was on the amendment.
On the amendment, yes. No further lights, roll call.
It's on the amendment. Milton?
Yes.
Pauls? Thompson?
In light of multiple games being played by multiple people in a city that seems to have a multiple personality, I'm going to say yes and take a chance on this. Thank you.
Festerson?
Yes.
Gurnett? Yes. Jerem? Yes. Mr. President?
No.
Second.
Roll call, please. I'm sorry. Okay. As amended?
As amended. Milton?
Yes.
Pauls?
Yes.
Thompson?
Multiple yes.
Festerson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Jerem?
Yes.
Mr. President?
No.
66 as amended is passed 6-1. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7F, agenda item number 67 through 68 shall be laid over 3 weeks for publication and public hearing. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7H, the third reading and public hearing on agenda item number 69 shall be held on January 12, 2016. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7H, the third reading on agenda item number 70 through 76 shall be held on January 12th. Public hearing on these items are today. Item 70, ordinance approving interlocal agreement with the Omaha Council of Bluffs Metropolitan Area Planning Agency for terms and conditions under which Omaha MAPA will participate in a project to obtain regional digital map products.
Public hearing on agenda item number 70 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Seeing none, next item.
71, ordinance to accept the bid from Nebraska Best for ground maintenance mowing of right-of-way identified as L Street, Sorensen Parkway, Dodge Maple right-of-way.
Public hearing on agenda item 71 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Next item.
Item 72, ordinance approving a redevelopment tax and financing loan agreement with KN Innovations to implement the Kiewit Education, Innovation, and Leadership Facility Tax and Financing Redevelopment Project Plan for a project site located along Mike Fahey Street between 14th and 15th Street in North Downtown.
Public hearing on agenda item number 72 is today. Ms. Hadley, please.
Good afternoon. Bridget Hadley, City Planning, here to answer questions you may have.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Next item.
Item number 73, ordinance to establish a new Class A Flammables Liquid Storage District, A154 at 8616 Vernon Avenue.
Public hearing on agenda item number 73 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Next item.
Item 74, ordinance to approve the acceptance and authorize the distribution of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Office of Lead Hazard Control and Healthy Homes Grant to provide funding for lead hazard control services for up to 135 housing units in targeted areas of substandard housing.
Public hearing on agenda item 74 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Next item.
Item 75, ordinance to approve the acceptance and authorize the distribution of the Department of Justice Office of Violence Against Women grant to provide funding for transitional housing services in partnership with the Catholic Charities, Domestic Violence Council, Family Housing Advisory Services, and the Women Center for Advancement.
Public hearing on item 75 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, are there any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Next item.
Item 76, ordinance to amend Section 23-177 concerning employment classifications by adding the employment classification entitled Library Technology Specialist.
Public hearing on agenda item 76 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Pursuant to City Council Rule 7H, the third reading and public hearing on agenda item 77 shall be held on January 26, 2016. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7H, the second reading and public hearing on agenda items number 78 through 82 shall be held on January 12, 2016.
And everyone have a happy holiday season. And I wear a size 40, Mr. Paul, 40 long, just in case you are so inclined. Second. Moved and seconded to adjourn. Roll call.
Milton. Yes. Pauls. Yes. Thompson. Yes. Festerson. Yes. Gurnett. Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
We are stand adjourned at 3:41 p.m. Happy holidays.
And crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining.